Hello and welcome back to another episode of the guest slot here on Wild Wisdom Wellbeing. And today I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Karen Jackson of Slow Down, Live Deeply. And you may have seen previous adverts that I put out saying that Karen worked in Bamboo Yoga Oil's life, but actually we are here today hearing about the recent changes as well. So, just before I go on to introduce Karen a little bit further, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Robin. Oh, hi, Tammy. We've got Tammy with us today. Brilliant. Lovely to see you here, Tammy. So yes, just introducing myself, my name is Robin and I'm founder of Equenergy Wellbeing Naturally and host of this Wild Wisdom Wellbeing group. And today, as I was saying, I'm delighted to have Karen with me from Slow Down and Live Deeply. Tammy just saying, I made it. I'm so glad you did, Tammy. So Karen is an amazing woman that I met through an online academy that we both did last year. And Karen's work resonates with me so deeply. And I thought she'd be a brilliant fit for this group because she looks at our innate body wisdom and tuning in, listening to that. She focuses on gratitude, which if you've been following me, you'll know is a big one for me. And also at the importance of our thoughts and our words and the impact that they have on our perception and our experience of the world around us. So I will now hand over to Karen if you would like to introduce yourself a little bit further and to tell us more about slowing down and living deeply.
Thanks, Robin. Thank you for having me as well. It's so lovely to see you reconnect and spend this time with everybody. So a little bit about my past. So I have got a law degree and a master's in law. I'm quite academic. And I started to go down that route and I realised it wasn't for me. So after traveling and getting married and things like that, I went into holistic therapies, which my dad wasn't very happy about. So he put me through all that education. However, it's where my soul needed to be. So I did lots and lots of training and created a business at home. Unfortunately, I had breast cancer twice. And after the second lot, I was traumatized, basically. And after the second operation, I realised I was going into general anxiety. I noticed that I was in fear more than joy. I went for counselling, but that didn't really resonate with me. So I managed to kind of do my own recovery, if you like, with essential oils, crystals, yin yoga, and lots of journaling and self-inquiry. And this is where the Slow Down, Live Deeply was kind of born, a combination of everything that I use for myself. I did have a bricks and mortar yoga studio, which was where Bamboo Yoga comes from. I closed that at the start of COVID, and I'm really grateful I did because we're a year in now, and then I'm all online. And then I was just guided about a month ago, so sorry for not letting you know sooner, Robin, that I needed to change my name in line with my podcast. I'm very much a believer in living now because I realised for a long time I wasn't living deeply. I wasn't present. I was in fear. I wasn't in joy. And now I use lots of different techniques, but the same aim to get our power back, to be in the present moment. And our thoughts, our words are so important. Like they're so important. So that's really where I come from. I have different tools that I use. So I educate on doTERRA essential oils and I mentor people with that. I teach yoga. My passion is yin yoga. Have you ever heard of that, Robin? Yin yoga?
I haven't. No, I can hazard a guess. Yin, very feminine, inward. So again, the living deeply really connects with that.
It's stunning. It's working with and it was literally one essential oil and yin yoga that helped me recover, really. Yin yoga is where we hold a shape for 1 to 5 minutes. So it's working with the Chinese meridian system, which lives in the fascia. So the idea is we enable a free flow of energy, as well as making space in the body. but some of the positions we're not so comfortable in. So it builds real mental and emotional resilience, and it allows emotions to flow. So we learn not to be reactive in life. We learn that emotions, just like a yin shape that you're not happy in, feels really, really intense. But you know, if you just come back to the breath, it will go. And that's been transformative for me. So yeah, I teach lots of things, but they're all tools, as you know, to the same aim. I also am a coach, and I've just recently launched my shamanic side again. I've brought that out of the cupboard. So I've got my drum out, and yeah, I've started to teach that as well. And then I launched a podcast in December, spur of the moment again, just like you're going to do it. So I did that within a day, that was up, and that's gone beautifully. I've had a lot of good feedback about that, and I just talk about my experience and what helps me. So yeah, those are the tools that I use.
It's wonderful. I love that you studied law to a high level.
Yes.
But chose to follow your heart, your gut, what was true for you. And I love that you brought the word joy in there twice, because I'm very much about follow your joy, follow what makes your heart sing. There's so many expectations that are placed on us by our family, extended family, school. I know when I was growing up, certainly the schools that I went to expected a high academic standard, expected that you would follow a certain career path, that you would go on to university, etc., etc. And for a lot of people, that wasn't necessarily the case. Certainly my brother, he's much more hands-on. He talks computers. That is his just way of seeing everything, whereas myself, I struggle with the tech side of things. So, you know, two siblings, but very, very different perspectives. We went through the same schools, primary school, secondary school, and for me it was much easier, I think, because I was more academically inclined, but my brother really struggled. And then of course I was the older sibling, so they always said to him, why aren't you more like your sister? And I was, don't say that, because I don't want to have to live with the outcome of that, the fallout. But also that's so unfair on him. And I love that you, although you went through the maybe more traditional kind of study route initially, then said, no, that's not my truth.
No.
Took a massive 180, despite your family struggling with that.
Yeah.
And you did what was true for you.
Yeah. No, I think, you know, what you're saying is spot on. And this is a lot of the work I do with self-inquiry. What do we really think? Like, what do we really think underneath what we've been told to do? What do we really, you know, at the start of my recovery, I read Daniel Laporte, Desire Map. Have you ever read that book?
I haven't, no.
It's beautiful. It's a workbook. And it made me ask myself how I really feel. What do I really enjoy doing? Because you know what, I haven't asked myself. We're not.
But we don't. No.
We're not taught what do I want to do. And I've been studying with a lady called Sahara Rose recently. I like studying. This is, you know, I love studying. My legal trainings, you know, I was saying to my daughter who's querying about university, it shaped my mind, you know, to do this. So I don't like doing it at all. But she talks about Dharma. So in yoga, Dharma is your purpose, your reason for being here on this world. And it could be your passion that you turn into career, which we do, or it could be a hobby that you do that brings you joy into people around you. And, you know, she says in the training, did your parents ever ask you what you really wanted to do? Did they ever do what they really wanted to do, or were they just stuck in this, you know, this conveyor belt? And so yeah, I think that it feels like a revolution. What do we want to do? Start to look and really discover who you are, because we get lost.
And how broad that can be. So I know that, you know, at school they might have said, what do you want to do? But I would have thought, and you know, you can tell that the expectation is, what do you want to do for a career? And it has to be a certain category of career. So, you know, as a client of mine years ago once said, my father expected that I would have a proper job. But there is a very kind of prescriptive sense of what is a proper job. And for her family, it was a job in an office. You wouldn't be doing something that was hands-on, more vocational rather than sort of professional. And yeah, that's very much, I think it's very important for children, for young people to be given that opportunity. No, explore what lights you up. What would you do just for the pure joy of doing that? And it can be a hobby solely. You don't have to do it as a career. If you love cooking, cook because of the joy of it. You might not want to turn it into a career. It might kind of zap some of the joy out of it for you. But for me, like you were talking about purpose, for me, our purpose is who we are, not what we do, but who we are and how we therefore show up in doing it. So, you know, in the manifestation and the law of attraction, they say don't focus on the how. But I think that is one area where the how is important. It's the how you do it, how you do anything that you do, how you be you and bring you and your uniqueness into everything that you do. For me, that's what purpose is really all about. And that's where I would bring in that living deeply, you know, from your deepest, innermost soul.
I love that, Robin. That be you. That is my work. That's my work. Like, who am I really? Like the onion layers, like, you know, I'm not this, I'm not that. I let go of another label. Who am I really? And our work is to be as completely and wholly as unapologetically. And that takes a lot of work. A lot of not caring what people think, you know, of who we are and being strong. There's a beautiful book, actually, Brené Brown, Braving the Wilderness, that is stunning. Have you read that one? It's a good one, isn't it?
Not that particular one, but I do love Brené Brown. Yeah. And like you were saying, being yourself unapologetically, I think that is the key. And you were saying before about, you know, you were talking about conditioning, all of the things that we are taught, that we take on board, that aren't with us when we are very young, but we just absorb them during that early part of our life, and then we forget that it's not actually ours. It's something we've taken on. So there's a piece that goes around, and I can't remember the wording of it, but it's about, maybe it's not about finding ourselves. It's about unlearning all of the stuff that we've taken on board, because that's not who we are. It's not what we're meant to be. We're meant to just get down, you know, drill down to the deepest bit of who we are. And just to bring in some of the comments here, Tammy is saying that she crochets because she gets the joy of turning wool into hats, etc. And it's a beautiful creativity, isn't it? And I saw a post today of somebody sharing rainbow colored wool. They've got all such a variety of materials that you can use these days. And it's very easy to be soul focused on what others think of us. Yeah. To live to their expectations, because almost we think, what choice have we got? That's the path that we're steered along sometimes.
So first, I just want to say, I tried to crochet. That's on my list one day to learn, like seriously. I think it's so creative. So yeah, Tammy, I might be in touch. And actually, that's something, we've all got these gifts that we can all teach each other. It doesn't have to be like your job. It just would help someone. But what you said about other people's opinions, when I teach yin yoga, I teach this a lot. Our thoughts and opinions aren't the truth, even our own. They change every second. They're interchangeable. They're not the truth. And so I always say this: why on earth do we care and change our life or who we think we are to adapt or try and conform to somebody else's thoughts and opinions that aren't true? It's just no. So yeah, I teach that a lot.
I think it also comes down to permission. We are taught to wait for permission for things that we want to do. As children, you know, wait. Dinner will be at a certain time. We'll go to somewhere at a certain time. We'll do something at a certain time. You're allowed to watch television once you finished your homework. You go to bed at a certain time or whatever. So there are permissions that are given to us, and we become reliant on that, I think, in a way. And it's the same at work. You can do certain things at certain times depending on your organization, which is maybe why we love so much being self-employed, setting up our own businesses, being entrepreneurs. But then we forget that actually, once we're an adult, and even to a degree when we're younger, we can give ourselves permission. We don't need to wait for the permission of others. And there's so many things in which we need to learn to be our own permission.
Yeah, I love that, Robin. I've just thought of a funny story, actually. So I was about 34 myself. My husband went through a period of watching Miami Ink on television about tattoos. And I said to my husband, I can't get a tattoo. And then I said to myself, why can't I get a tattoo? And I was basing it on my father's opinions. So I got a tattoo. But I caught the thought. So this is why I talk a lot about your thoughts, because quite often you'll say something, it's not actually your belief. So I really love looking at my thoughts. This is a really interesting exercise, actually, to set a timer for 1 hour for a few days and stop and what are you thinking? Like what is actually your thoughts? And yeah, I do it a lot, and then I try and move past that thought and say thank you for the thought. It's not me, it's not mine. And yeah, quite often you'll hear your parents or the people who when you're young, they're there in your head still with their beliefs that aren't true. So I think it's really empowering to catch your thoughts and think, is that me? What do I really think, and journal on it.
That's the thing, to really ask. So I think when we're doing those sorts of exercises, it's really important to be open, to be curious, and to be compassionate.
Yeah.
Because we may discover that we've been holding and buying into and following beliefs that aren't ours, but that have been holding us back, reducing us in some way, making us lesser than who we really are in some aspect of our lives. And so we need to be compassionate with ourselves, but also compassionate with the people who shared those things, because they were probably sharing from what they'd learned, as you said, and from their own position of lack. And we've taken that on board because they were important, significant figures in our lives. And if we've never been encouraged to question and challenge and look at why we hold those beliefs, if we're not even conscious that we hold them but they're not ours, then of course. But as well, I love the idea that a belief is like a lens. It's like a window. It's something that we need to take out, dust off, clean, refresh on a regular basis.
Yeah, so true. And yeah, I love exactly what you're saying about compassion. It's actually made me feel more compassionate to my parents, because you realize that they've got that suffering and they've been programmed, and you know, that generation, they're just not taught to look or consider or even think that that this has happened to them. So yeah, and whenever I catch myself with a thought, I'll treat myself like a little child in a nice way, and I'll be like, oh, you know, just treat myself with compassion. I'm not judgmental. I don't tell myself off. You could get really frustrated. Oh, I've been believing this for years. And no, it's like, oh, bless your heart. It's okay. Yeah. And it's, just heal.
And we are all inside of us. We all have that little child, don't we? And we have that. If that child was being told that by a parent and believed it completely, it's still functioning at that age. And I think that's something we need to be aware of, and that supports our compassion. Because if we think that's still my inner 4-year-old, how could they know anything different? How could they know what the world was really like, or how their life would be going forward? Of course they took that on board. It was a parent that they loved and trusted, who was probably doing the very best that they could for the child. So then I can just, like you say, and I've since moving to Wales, I've learned this wonderful word, cwtch. So you can have a little cwtch with that 4-year-old, and then you, from an adult, and you were talking before about being reactive versus responsive, the adult can choose how to respond. Because I am now separate from that belief, I can see myself as distinct from it. Then I can choose what I want to do for my joy.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, couldn't say any better.
Yeah, and Tammy just saying our inner child can be incredibly strong. That's so true.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about how you work with the inner body wisdom that we're all born with, but sometimes we lose a little bit of that connection.
Oh, I love this. So we all know. We all know things. We're very, very wise. Just like animals know when a storm's coming. You know, they know we are energy and we're connected to universal energy. And I know that everybody who's listening or watching will have had experiences where they think about somebody and then they either see them or they hear them on the phone. It's that intuition. And we just eat it down or drink it down or numb it down, because we just do. Our gut instinct is amazing. And it's actually been proven there's more neurotransmitters from gut to head than there is from head to gut. In this society where it's all about the head, thinking, rationalizing, no, we can feel. We've got such intelligence in our bodies, and it's really slow down. No wonder I call my company this way.
Yeah, it's perfect, isn't it, that name?
Yeah, that's what I say a lot, but really it's about slowing down, a few minutes of meditation, a few calm breaths, and just sinking in, how is the body feeling? Giving yourself some space, because if we're always on the go, you just don't even know how you feel. I mean, sometimes we don't eat, or when we're hungry, or we eat when we're not hungry because of, like you say, times. And it's just really about listening back to the body. And something I get quite fired up about is society takes us away from our innate body's circadian rhythms. So I talk a lot about the lights, the electric lights. They fool our heads into not wanting to be ready for sleep. Caffeine stops hormones building up that send us to sleep. We're supposed to wake up at a certain time. You know, some of us are night owls, some of us are early birds, and we kept the fire around the camp going, and we coexisted. So I just think every day, I mean, I love technology a lot, but just modern conveniences, even like heating at night stops us shutting down for bed, because the sun goes down in nature and it gets cooler and darker. And that's when the light should go down. That's when we should rest. So all these, we've got so many bombarding ideas and gadgets and schedules that we don't even listen. We don't listen to ourselves. We're so out of touch. So, yeah.
But we do that because we feel we have to, don't we? To survive in today's world, we turn that down, because otherwise we'd be overwhelmed. We wouldn't be able to cope. But then we forget to tune back in, or to listen to our heart and go, this life is not working for me. Because like you're saying, the body really does have a wisdom, and it'll tell us, through those sensations that we have. But then we take the caffeine, we take the pills, we numb it down through food, drink, any addiction. So shopping, even gambling, all of these things that are a little way of our body saying, actually, this isn't working. I'm not happy. I'm not comfortable. Can we do something different? Can we change something? And it only takes sometimes very small changes, so long as we listen in and tune in. But our body will tell us. And what we call in the West disease, dis-ease, that is the body saying, something's not working for me. Please, can we address this? And if we don't, then that's what leads on into real illness and chronic conditions, or very severe conditions. But when we can address them really early, then the body doesn't need to shout.
I love that. And that's a big part of my message as well, is take responsibility for how you're feeling and listen to the body. So 2 weeks ago, I felt, because I work all day, I've got my own business, I've got a few little parts of my business, so I work pretty much all day. Then I teach yoga 3 nights a week. And I thought, I think I might be feeling a bit tired. So I said to my students, I'm having next week off teaching yoga, and it felt luxurious, it felt abundant, it felt spacious. And I got back on Monday to teach, rejuvenated, like more in love with it than ever before. But I listened. If I keep going and going and going, I'm not listening to my body. And like you say, I've been seriously ill. I mean, it looked really bad at one stage. I don't want to do that. I want to live deeply. I want to live, and I take responsibility for how my health is now. That's the difference. I look after.
And I love as well when you said there that it felt abundant, it felt spacious. And I often talk to people about how to feel your way from stress into flow and notice the difference in your body, how stress and lack and all of these things feel. You feel smaller, you feel crunched up, you go into almost, maybe not physically, but internally and metaphorically, but it's still reflected in your body. You go into that fetal kind of. Whereas if you can follow what lights you up, your joy, your abundance, you just feel expansive and see potential, and it feels so hugely different. And that's just your body saying, yes, that's the way.
Yeah, we're just not made to function as we are being asked to with all this stimulation. It's just no, and there's nothing, that what I'm trying to teach myself, remember myself, and also teach my students, it's okay to rest.
It's important. It's essential,
vital. So by me demonstrating and doing it, then they're like, oh, she's actually doing what she tells us.
Yeah, it is really important, isn't it, to walk your talk, because otherwise whatever you say it's not authentic. There's no congruence, there's no integrity in it.
Yeah.
So also, I know that gratitude is a really important practice to you. Would you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I love gratitude. I did a gratitude challenge recently in my group, and it's really interesting. I like to flip things on the head a bit. So if I can remember, I'll take you through the exercises that we did each day. So the first one was, I'm sure everyone has done that, where there's 3 things in the morning and 3 things in the evening that you're grateful for. And I encourage people to go into real depth, like really glorious descriptive words, like really feel it. And then the second day, we looked at how does it feel in the body. So, for example, when I'm in really deep gratitude, I feel it in my heart and I feel it behind my eyes. I feel connected and expansive and abundant, all those things, and in flow and part of something bigger than me. That's how I feel. Everyone feels something differently. And then I think it was, I can't remember which day, one day we looked at things that we're grateful for in other people. And I encourage people to either A, write a letter, or B, phone them or see them and tell them. So you're actually expressing the gratitude. It's that 2-way stream of energy. And then one day, and this was the most challenging, I asked everyone to write down a list of everything they were grateful for about themselves, their strengths, what they thought they were good at, and it really triggered a lot of people. Really, really interesting. But it's a big part of gratitude. I've just done my latest, I don't think it's coming out tomorrow on Friday. My latest podcast is about being able or open to receive. So I used to be so closed off, and this is relevant to gratitude. Make sure I come back to it, Robin, because I do go off. But I used to be so traumatized that I'd literally closed, like you were saying, I was here, a big wall around me, that I wouldn't, when I was going through cancer, in my head, I had to be the strong one. I didn't want my kids to notice. Every time, if I cried, my husband would go to bed. So I was like, oh, I've got to be the strong one. Whereas that didn't serve me long term, but it served me at the time. But that was my default. I don't need it, or no one helps me. I'm there. So I speak in the podcast. I can remember on a family holiday, somebody saying, oh, do you want us to take a photo? It's a beautiful harbour. And I was like, no, we're okay. I wouldn't even accept that. I couldn't accept anything. So I've worked on that. And then I look at myself. What am I grateful for about myself? What am I good at? Owning what I'm good at. Because if we can't be grateful of our own skills, we can't really accept or love ourselves. So to turn that gratitude inwards is beautiful, because I'm grateful. I'm grateful for my hands that let me do yoga and type and express and cook and garden. I'm grateful for my feet that carry me on my earth walk. I'm grateful for my nice soft big bottom that's cushioned and that lets me sit down. I'm grateful for my heart that feels so deeply. I'm grateful for my really clever brain that enables me to see life in my unique way. Even the flaws, like I know that I can be a bit controlling. I'm working on that. I know that I try and help people too much, but I need to learn to step back. But I'm grateful that that comes from the heart. We have so much about us, so many gifts. We need, well, I believe, I try not to say need, I believe it's really powerful to show gratitude to yourself as well.
And if you tie that in with The Secret and the law of attraction, the two of the exercises that you mentioned there, what we see in others that we can be grateful, that we are grateful for, and telling them, because we are focusing on that gift. And when we see something in other people that we like, it's the same as when we see something that we don't like. They say that's in us. But when we see something that we like in somebody else, it's because we have it in ourselves too. So when we express gratitude to them for what they are showing that we love, we are also kind of saying gratitude to the fact that it's in us as well, that aspect of us. And then being able to say what I like about myself. These things open, like you, when you did that there about being closed, it's your heart chakra, and particularly because of the cancer and the operations that you had, it is our heart chakra. It's our center, it's our core, it's our love of life, it's our connection to life. So when we can open that up, that does such amazing things. And I was just listening to somebody earlier who was talking about imposter syndrome and was talking about being able to receive compliments. So whether it's from ourselves or somebody else saying, you know, what I really like about you is, or you're incredible at XYZ. If we can't take those on board, that again is being shut in that area, it's being shut off to all these wonderful things that are out there for us. So for me, it's about, like you say as well about the flaws, it's about exploring, well, what has made that be the case in me? Why has that happened? And if it's a flaw, what does that have to teach me? Okay, maybe I give too much to others. I'm generous, but where do I need to have a boundary? Why is my boundary not there? What has caused my boundary to be an issue? So nothing about anything that happens to us needs to be a negative. There's nothing we need to feel guilty about. All it is openness, curiosity, compassion. We can learn from it all. We can grow. It can be fun. Okay, maybe it's challenging, but it can still be fun. Like you love study. We can say, oh, it's a really hard job, that. But it doesn't necessarily mean it was a negatively hard job. It was just, oh, it was challenging. It was meaty. I got my teeth into it. I've come out the other side and I feel amazing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. In yoga, we call these lessons or these shadow aspects of us, things that we probably don't like so much, but we need light and shade, is we call it a guru, a teaching, a trigger. And every time
sorry, could you just repeat that word?
Yeah, I call it a guru. G-U-R-U.
Oh, a guru. Yes. Yeah.
It's a teaching. And every time I'm triggered, I'm like, yes, I get to heal a bit more. Yes, I get to discover a bit more about me. And with the heart, something I teach a lot. So honestly, this is my latest podcast, but I talk about being able to receive a compliment. And I taught my friend this last year. Someone checked me out going down the street and she was like, oh, look at him. I'm like, yeah, I know. She's like, you know? I was like, yeah, I saw him. She was like, gosh, your confidence. I said, look, I've had to relearn this. So we had a challenge every time somebody said something nice to her that week, because we were away together, instead of batting it off, oh, no, I'm not, all that ego, shy stuff, I just challenged her, and I looked at her every time to say thank you. Just thank you with a really gentle smile. Because if I give you a compliment, Robin, and sorry, someone's up there, if I give you a compliment and you're like, oh, it kind of feels the energy is off. Mm-hmm. And if you don't receive my compliment or accept it, I'm denied the act of giving. The same with the service or time. Someone's giving you energy, you're just pushing it back. It doesn't feel very nice. And I did that for years. So all of this, again, I say without judgment, with lots of compassion. So I just keep reminding myself, don't deny people the gift, the act of giving. Don't deny. Receive. I'm open to receive. I tell myself every day I'm open to receiving, because I have had to reprogram my system from being like this to being more expansive and open. And I still do that.
It's a practice, isn't it? And I love that about yoga. They talk about a practice. It's not about an achievement, because we're always works in progress, and there'll always be another layer and another layer, because every day's a school day and we never stop learning. And that's part of my joy of life, that there's always more to do. There's always more to learn. There's always more to heal. I love that you brought that in there. And yes, that's such a true statement, that when we brush compliments away, or any offer of support or whatever it might be, that is denying that person the opportunity. And if I'm somebody who's complimenting another person, I'm doing it, straight. I mean it. I'm trying to lift their day. To have that pushed back in my face feels, like you say, feels off. So yes, and I think ego, our mind, you were talking about our inner opinions and thoughts, and the mind is not to be trusted. I was sharing the other day that Einstein has a wonderful quote: the intuitive mind is a wonderful gift, and the rational mind should be the faithful servant. So it's not that we listen to our mind first and foremost, which unfortunately is what we're taught to do, but that we listen to the gut, and then we bring the mind in to serve that, rather than the other way around. So yes, our ego has a place, and when it brings up things that are a little bit off, and we kind of, or it is very fear focused, it's very negatively biased to keep us safe. So if it's something that we want to go, I don't want to follow that, we can just say thank you very much. But also to understand where it's coming from, where it's driving us, where it's fear or lack or whatever it is that's saying, no, the false modesty or whatever it might be, that we don't need to do that anymore, because we know it doesn't serve us. We know it's not our truth.
So there's a challenge to everybody. Say thank you every time you get a compliment. And see how things change. But actually, I want to expand on this a bit more, because of my all aloneness, even though I wasn't alone, I do it all myself. If you don't accept, you feel really lonely. I was surrounded by the most beautiful, amazing, supportive people, but because I wasn't receiving it, I couldn't feel it. And so it was me against the world. And that's not, even, I do believe this sincerely, even in the hardest times, there's always someone or something there for us. And it's just holding on to that and letting it in, let that light, let that support in, because if you're closed off, it's a very lonely, fearful place, and we all deserve joy.
That's such an important point, and I've been there too. And I know it was me. I was thinking, nobody's helping me, nobody cares, nobody understands. I was so miserable. But you come out the other side of that and you see, I created that. And again, it's compassion for that. There was a reason, and I needed to go through that to come to where I am now. But just to understand, trust. Take that little step of trust and allow, even if you only crack the door a little bit, it will make a difference. And the more you do it, the more you can see evidence and build that trust and build that belief that, there are people there, that there are people who care, there are people who love, because we're social beings, we're made to connect. We all want that, we all need that, we all offer that.
We just have to see it. And but like say, trust and believe it, that we're worthy, that's a whole nother hour conversation.
I was just going to latch onto that. That's a huge step, to see ourselves as worthy.
I won't get started on that.
Yeah, shame. Maybe another time.
Yeah.
So say a little bit more about the importance of our thoughts and the words that we use and how that impacts on our life and our experience.
Okay, so I'm just writing these down. So things that I advocate for not saying: can't, should, need, must. These all, in my humble opinion, so I always say this when I teach something, this is my opinion, this is through my lens of perception, this is the way that I've taken stuff in, and I teach it out to the world. When I say those things, I feel very disempowered. I'm not in control of myself. So instead of saying those words, now I say I choose. So, for example, say you want to start running and it's a really rainy day and you probably got your knee aches or something. You can choose. Do I actually rest and restore and repair myself, or do I choose to get started anyway? There's no, oh, I can't do it because my knee hurts. What are you choosing? Each option sounds empowered. Whereas I can't because my knee's hurting. For me, it takes the power away, if that makes sense. So I look at everything. I look at most people around me. I must drive people crazy, but I love looking at the words we use. It gives us so much insight into these programs that we're unaware of in our heads that we've spoke about earlier. So I don't believe we should be positive, and I don't believe in spiritual bypassing. We need, we should accept that we don't feel good all the time in every second, but I do believe we have great power in how we choose to express ourselves, and the words that we use, it carries great weight. So yeah, I do. If I hear myself say I can't, I change it instantly. No, what do I choose? Because I'm in control of how I feel, and therefore I'm in control of the words that I use, because your words are vibrational energy. They affect the body and the mind and the emotions.
Words are creative.
Mm.
They really are. And you'll see that in traditions, ancient traditions. Even the Bible talks about the word that created the world. Mm. So yeah, it creates our reality in effect. It may not be that I say something and something appears. I say coffee and it appears, sadly. Nice. But it certainly does manifest how we experience the world around us. And I'm passionate about the words that you mentioned and reframing it into I choose. And again, I would be looking at, how does that make me feel? I need, I want, I must, I should. It feels horrible. It feels icky. And it feels very disempowering. You can just feel that sort of sinking sensation in your stomach, or that little small wee-ness, as we call it in our house, versus I choose. I mean, even just how I want to say it is I choose. Yeah. And I feel more expansive. I feel more powerful because it was my choice. And if it was my choice, I can do it the way I want to do it, and I can make it fun.
Yes, exactly. Oh, that was echoing.
And like you said, we can't really expect to feel good all of the time. But even when we're not feeling good, if my knee is hurting and I don't want to go for that run, or I'm tired, I can choose to rest and repair and to explore, well, what's my knee telling me? Why is it hurting today? What does it need? How can I support it? Versus, oh, my knee's hurting, where we're taught sometimes, if it was arthritis, the body's attacking you, or if a ligament has been torn or damaged, oh, my body is breaking down. Versus, no, my body has a wisdom. My knee is telling me, because knees can be about flexibility, moving forward, all of these things, so we can explore, where have I felt I've needed to be more flexible than actually I feel able or willing to be. And there are so many different layers and access to wisdom that we can have through whatever our body is showing us. It doesn't have to be, I feel ill, I feel pain, these things that drag us down.
Yeah,
And Loretta's here as well, just saying, I need to talk to myself in a nicer way. I think that's huge, that we often are our own worst critic. And that's something as well. You were talking about beliefs and pulling ourselves up on our beliefs earlier, catching them. I think we need to listen as well, can choose to listen to the inner critic and what it's telling us. And even that can be a learning. If my inner critic is saying something, oh, but you can't, the imposter syndrome again, you couldn't possibly be XYZ. Well, whose voice is that really? What is it telling me in terms of my need that isn't being addressed, isn't being met, that I can now, as my adult self, reparent or address that need for myself, or find a way to do it?
I love the fact that you said reparent, because I think it is. I think as we go through life and we discover that we've got these programs, we have to reparent, or I talk about, I have to start leading myself. I'm like my own parent now. I'm grown up. How do I lead myself? How do I live my life? And when I say, when the little mind monkeys come in, oh, you can't do that, I literally say to myself, what if? So I change, I can't to, well, what if? And the energy, everything's lighter. It's like a bit cheeky, a bit mischievous, a bit like magical. Well, what if? No pressure, just what if? And when I've got these things, I always say to myself, what would love do? So why would I treat myself any differently to anyone else? Why am I so? I do this as a challenge. I've said it to a few people this week. Why am I so special that I'm the only one who can't do this thing that everybody else is able to do? Am I that special? And the ego is like, no, you're not that special. So yeah, you can do it then. I kind of reverse psychology.
A bit of reverse psychology.
Yeah, but it works because you see the humor and you're like, you can't argue with that. And one of the big things I've when I was really having to relearn compassion for myself, what would love do? Would love call me these names? How can I love anybody if I don't know how it feels to love myself? And I know it's like an old saying, yeah, love yourself, but it's actually true.
It is.
It's really true.
And how can we have compassion or love or anything for another truly, deeply, unless we have it for ourselves? Because something in us will be going, hang on, but you're not doing that. You're not expressing that to me, myself. And I think deep down, if we are truly digging deep and living deeply, we are love. That's the how, that's our purpose. That's where the how to show up. So to do that for ourselves first and foremost, because once we do that for ourselves, it flows naturally, doesn't it? Kind of, we fill our cup up and we overflow to those around us.
Yeah. And if you are full of love for yourself, I mean, we're taught not to, who does she think she is? With the gratitude and confidence, who does she think she is? Look at her living her life, not caring, like actually enjoy, not following us all because we're stuck. So if you feel stuck, and I'm talking from experience because I'm no angel, if you feel stuck, if you're not having support, if you're not loving yourself, you feel anger, frustration, you're not you're not as welcoming to be around as if you're doing this kind of releasing and healing on yourself and loving. You're just a different energy to be around.
And absolutely. And people, some people might look at it and go, you're being cocky, or who does she think she is, that kind of thing. But others will see where it's coming from. Those people who are doing that judgment, it's because of where they are. It's true that as well, what they say, isn't it? It's not when somebody says something, it's more about who they are than about who you are. But for those who really see, and because we're role models always, aren't we, to somebody? Somebody will be looking and watching and seeing that we're giving ourselves permission, seeing that we are being in that expansive energy. They will be drawn to that. They will want to learn how to have that for themselves, which is a great gift to be able to share with somebody.
It is. And I say this quite often. Imagine if we were all full of our own power. So not power over people. We know our gifts. We know what we want to do in the world. We're actually full of love. We feel supported. We feel safe. We feel connected. if everybody did this kind of work, the world would be dramatically different. It just
and
was.
everybody would be doing it in their own place, in their own way. So saying that is not to say that you all have to do a bamboo yoga style life or life coaching or whatever. It's do your thing where you are in your way. The uniqueness of every individual. I look at other people and they're very, very different. Like my husband is an engineer, and he says, oh, but I couldn't do anything like that intuitive stuff. I think, but that's what you do every day. He can just listen to an engine and know what the problem is and sort it. And he doesn't need to look up a manual or whatever. He just knows what to do. And I would be completely lost. My brother knows what to do with a computer. I would be even more lost. So it's each one in their own little space, but then coming together. So like that one little light that lights every little light, and then
no, exactly. We've all got such different talents, and different things relax us. Like some people love colouring, mindful colouring. My personality, I can't rest till that thing's coloured. That doesn't relax me, but some people it does. We've all got, so yeah, it's about finding the things that give you joy, that make you, that those things that give you space in your head, and it could be anything, who knows, but yeah, it's about finding those things, and it's asking yourself the question, what brings me joy? What do I like doing? And listening.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, and then listening, tuning in to that response to what your body says. And like you were saying earlier about just maybe, possibly, you know, when you were talking about we were talking about the reverse psychology on the ego, and just even to say the word possibility, maybe.
Yeah.
It's suddenly kind of where you maybe have been sitting in a small, dark, closed space. There's a chink of light.
Yeah.
And we get drawn to that. Yes, it's bringing back hope. No, as well, taking that pressure off. That's exactly it.
Yeah, and I love that. I'm just like, what if?
Yeah.
Telling myself in a gentle way. I'm like, hey, yeah. okay, I'll do a podcast. I'm scared, but it's like that. This is my life. I have these ideas all the time. I'm like, oh, another idea. Do I really need to grow again? But yes, I do. Not done yet.
No, not by a long shot.
No.
Because keeping going is just being alive, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's the living. It's but it's the magic. The magic is when you try different things. Yeah.
I love that word. It's another one of those words that again, going back to the fact that words are so amazing. I love that we can play with words. I love that words can have so many nuances of meaning. So magic. We talk about magic, and you think of maybe Harry Potter kind of magic, but there's a deeper magic. I love the magic of nature. I love the magic of the things that you don't expect that happen, the magic of love, the magic of connection, and wonderful, because I love that is wonderful, and enjoy, because I think it was Neil Donald Walsh in his Conversations with God series, and he talked about enjoy actually means bring joy into. Oh. That's what enjoy is. And ever since reading that, how these things just suddenly, a light bulb goes on, a connection is made. And he also talked about remembering that we haven't actually lost these things. We're not really disconnected from them. We just need to kind of bring them into our focus again. We need to remember them in our body.
Yeah.
And in our awareness.
Yeah, I love that word. And it's talk about that a lot is powerful. Yeah, remember, because it never left us. No. It's always been there. We've always been whole. We just forget.
We're not broken. We don't need fixing. It's just about trusting, being open, being curious, and remembering.
Yeah.
And listening to the gut.
And listening.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
You also work with the breath. Can you tell us a little bit about what sort of thing you do in that regard?
Yeah. So part of the yogic system is pranayama, which is breath work. And the yogis believe, and it's my belief, so remember I always say my belief, that you can influence the flow of energy in the body. I teach mainly for people who suffer from anxious feelings and low moods and feel a bit lost, how to slow the breath down. When we slow the breath down, it sends a signal to the brain saying, in this moment, we are okay. In this moment, as you slow the breath down, we're going to stop the stress hormones. We're going to put you into the parasympathetic, the relaxation response, so you can restore, you can have a break. We've all got our breath that we can work with. So it's just a really simple thing to sit for a minute and just slow your breath down. That's what you need to do. And I am saying need. We do need to do this more.
It's important to do.
Yeah, it's important just to take some pauses. Otherwise, a lot of the population are shallow breathing. They're just breathing with the upper part. That's the stress response. We need to let the tummy be free. And even things like really strong tummies, they can actually stop the breath flowing so freely because you're so tight. Or when you're fearful, you're so closed in. So it's softening and making space for this breath. Letting the tummy rise and fall. Yeah, it's something so simple. Again, it's like our primal stress response. Not our primal stress soother. No, we've got it built into us. We know what to do. We've just got to remember. Got to think. I'm breathing a bit shallow at the moment. I feel stressed. I mean, I think a lot of people go through the day without even realizing that they're in the stress response. It's become their normal. I'm wide, I'm keeping going. And it's exhausting. That's when you can get really serious issues as well. If the adrenals keep having to support you. Just slow down the breath a few times a day. It will be transformative.
And I think that goes back to what you were saying earlier about the constant demands on us, the technology, the way that society is set up. And we live in a 24-hour world now, really. We've got all these lights, etc., etc. And that you use the term space. We don't have that space. Like I was saying, we've turned down our dial just to get through, but it means that we're not noticing that we're breathing shallowly, that we're sitting slumped, all these body postures, positions that are sending that feedback, as well as the breath, the how we're sitting. If we could sit up, open our heart space, breathe from the belly. You look at a child, that's how they breathe. Yeah. But we've forgotten, disconnected, turned that down. So remembering that, because it'll just send that feedback loop to the body. Oh, I must be okay because I'm breathing from my diaphragm and I'm sitting up straight. And that tells me I'm okay. It's like that thing they used to do, put your pencil in between your teeth that makes you smile. As soon as you smile, you feel better, even if nothing has changed. Yeah.
And it's the same with yoga's really powerful, and yin yoga, because when you stretch, when the body's still in stretching, you're not in ready to fight mode. The head's just wherever it wants to be, and the whole system is relaxing. And that's why I love those, because the two combined, it's a great reset for the nervous system. Yeah.
Yeah, and they've done so much research now on the vagus nerve and the mesentery and all of how these link to the brain. And there's trauma release exercises that work on things like the psoas that hold so much of our emotion. So there is lots of information, evidence out there now, research that shows how much our body is holding for us, can tell us. So again, it's just tuning back in and listening, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was just actually connecting when you talked about words being so important and creative. It's body language. So you don't even need to say anything for your body to be going, you're not okay right now. And yeah, just being open. If you just do that, the energy lifts, you everything's lighter. So if you do feel like this, just having the space to just sit up tall, or even if you dare open the chest. And I say dare because For some souls that I've taught yoga for, just doing that has been too much. It's been, oh, I'm not ready for that. I've got to be back here. So yeah, the way we carry ourselves is a language in itself that talks to the world and our hormonal system and emotions.
Absolutely. And it's understanding that. And if you've been through a trauma, remember, as well, being very subjective. So it was how it impacted on me at that time. So if that has put me into that need to be closed, to be protective, then to be expansive in one step may well be far too much. So it's looking at what put you into that place. How can you start to address those issues, start to do that healing work, so that you can then start to open up at a pace that's right for you. No pushing, no forcing, just going with what is right and listening again to the body.
Yeah, after my second surgery, so I had a double mastectomy with a reconstruction. So I had about that much flesh and skin taken from my torso. So I was pulled forward. I've got radiotherapy. So my body was literally, I physically couldn't do anything about it. I was like this. I didn't want to be like that. So I literally, every day that I was free after the first 6 weeks, I got to the mat and I laid with something under my back with my arms open. And then when that felt freer, I'd put, because I wanted to do the crab, the wheel, then I'd do one arm and then I'd do another. And it took a year for me to be able to get the wheel, which is a pose and a half, but daily consistent action. So it could be looking at your thoughts. It could be building a daily practice of slowing your breath down. We have so much power. We have so much power, and that is powerful. For me, it's powerful from getting my body here into a wheel. I'm like, wow, my body's amazing. Gone through all that and I can still do this. But what it needed me to do was to care and do the action of what was required to get there. Nothing ever just happens. We need to be aware, and we also need to look at what would we like. So if we're feeling low, what's the first mood you'd like to move to? What if? Hope. Like, what's your first step? For me, it was doing that without it pulling too much. We've always got little places we can stop along the way, but it's really looking in. How do we feel, and how do we want to feel, and what could we do to move us there?
And that's a very important point, to have that goal and to break it down into steps that feel manageable, that feel achievable, and to know that we have as long as we need.
Yeah.
And every step along the way, it took us time to get to where we are. Every step along the way to where we want to be is going to be a positive step. It's going to be a movement that's forward, that's growth, that's learning, that's developing, and that's going to be really interesting journey all along the way. So not to think I have that far to go from having had surgery where you can't even nearly maybe sit up straight, to being able to do a crab is huge and might look unachievable. But actually, if I can just lie on my back, and then if I can lie on my back with my arms open, and then if I can put one arm up, and then if I can put... So I love the way that you described that. And that, yes, my body is amazing. I think as well, visualization is a huge support for that. And was it Dr. Joe Dispenza who had the accident and damaged his spine and was told you may never walk again? But he lay in bed and just imaged in his head, visualized his spine healing. And now he's up and mobile and talking and speaking about his journey. So I think it's also, like you were saying, hope, never to give up, that we trust that our bodies are amazing, and we don't know how far we can take it.
No.
We don't know what might happen. So just keep on building incrementally as far as you want to go.
Yeah, and I don't know why I talked about that. It just came into my head. But something else that I just like to say is that, so I'm a yoga teacher. When I go to yoga workshops, I'm in a room with people who can do that like 20 times in a row. I still can't do a handstand. They can pop a handstand up. So I had to let go and bless myself of all comparison. All comparison. Nobody has been in my body through what I've been. And I completely and deeply accept myself exactly where I was. No comparison, because that wouldn't have been very helpful.
No. And like you say, nobody else is me.
No.
And I am not anybody else. So my journey is mine and your journey is yours. And each one is equally valid and equally important and equally precious. But just wanted to bring in here this Facebook user, unfortunately, doesn't say the name, but Karen, you really have such a story in you. Have you ever considered writing it in a book? As I feel that you could help so many people who've gone through cancer and how to recover back to true health.
Thank you. I have thought about it and I've got the shivers. It's just the space. So what I did as not even a stopgap, I've done my podcast instead, because I could do that quite easily. It's easy for me to do. So that's how I've decided to share. But yeah, someone said to me the other day, and I have this thing that if I hear something a few times, 2 or 3, 4 times in quick succession, then I've got to do I've got to do it. It's like my challenge to myself. So thank you. Now it means a lot. I have thought about it. Don't have the space right now, but I won't rule it out. But no, thank you. That's really kind. It means a lot. But my podcast, that's to share these kind of things, my musings, and how I try and reprogram myself, and how I look at fear and all those things that have been so prevalent along the way.
Sounds like that might be a synchronous nudge. But podcasts, I think podcasts are brilliant because so many people are busy and reading is another thing to do. Whereas you could just lie and listen, or you can listen when you're doing something else. If it doesn't need your full attention, then you can still be listening to something. Laura Curry is saying it's not a coincidence. You'll most likely hear more people recommend this too. Oh, there's a message coming for you here, Karen. But you could potentially get somebody to write from what you have spoken about. A ghostwriter to listen to your podcast and turn it into a book. There are lots of options. It's not necessarily that you have to sit down and put a book together yourself.
I do like writing. When I was younger, I always wanted to write a book. So yeah.
Well, there you go.
They're like 15 minutes long with some meditations. They're really short. They're like, boom, that's the lesson for this week. And yeah, thank you everyone so much for that.
But you know that books these days don't have to be great big professional tomes. You don't have to write a guide book, but short self-published works are amazing as well. I've got some friends who've done that. Yeah. And breathe.
No, yeah, okay. Taken.
So maybe once your podcasts have got to a certain point, it'll be ready to write. Now is the time to put it into print.
Yeah, thank you.
And on that note, I would just like to say thank you so much, Karen. It's been wonderful having you here and such a joy to have this conversation with you. Thank you so much for joining me.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thanks, Robin.
And thank you all for tuning in. If you have any comments or questions for Karen, feel free, even after this has finished, to pop them in the chat below and one or other of us will respond. And if you're watching on replay, just stick in any comments with #replay. Thank you. So this has been myself, Robin Harris, with Karen of Slow Down and Live Deeply, here on the Wild Wisdom Wellbeing guest slot. Thanks for tuning in. Bye for now.